What's up, guys, and welcome to Terror Talk. Today's episode is about rewatchable remakes. I'm your host, Stevie Capone, and joining me today for this discussion is actor and horror enthusiast Michael Tula. Welcome,
Hey.
Michael.
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Yep. So, while there's several remakes that are just downright awful, and we can all agree on that, there are some that are actually really good movies. So we both made separate lists. So let's get right into it. Let's talk terror. What was one that you had on your list that you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot on my list, but I definitely wanted to say Dawn of the Dead, that remake, because I remember watching the original movie. You know, it was like the 70s. I watched it at home with my brothers, and I was thinking, man, this is so awesome, because it was everyone's kind of semi-dream to like have the mall to yourself and be able, it's like, what would you do factor in there, and then obviously there's zombies and stuff. But that whole movie, and Tom Savini, I believe he did some special effects on there as well. But yeah, no, I really loved the original. And then when the remake came out, you know, I was in college, I saw it in theaters, and I was like, man, just the way it starts, you know, in the suburban neighborhood, and all of a sudden just the crap hits the fan, and just seeing how everyone got to the mall. Characters are different. The premise is more or less the same, but it's not a by the numbers remake, which is, you know, helps it stand on its own legs. And it was good, man. I mean, they explored some of the same, you know, themes as the original, but
I think what's really cool about that one, though, is like it has the perfect balance of horror and comedy. Like, it doesn't like lean too much on either side. Like it has the horror factor in it completely, but it has like such comedic relief in certain scenes. It makes it fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, I actually think there was more comedy or humor in the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you go back and you look at it. I think that was one, especially since I've seen it in theaters too, you know, that kind of helped it out a lot for me too. But also, you know, Sarah probably did a great job. And just the fact that they went through all that drama trying to find, you know, their safe haven at the end, and then it's just all for naught. They end up dying. So that hopelessness kind of sets in. And it's just, to me, I thought like that was definitely one that, you know, if someone said they like the remake more than the original, like they're both good movies. On a much lower level, this is like Terminator and T2 kind of thing, you know, the remakes. You know, you're not going to argue against someone if they prefer one or the other. But, you know, I obviously prefer the original. But, you know, you tell me you like the remake of Dawn of the Dead, I definitely can understand that too. And it was rewatchable. I remember, I haven't seen it in a while. But when it came out
months ago, and I was like, man, I forgot how much I love this movie.
Fun. It's a fun movie. Yeah, they get right into it. So yeah, that's number one on my list.
So like mine's not any particular order, but probably the same as yours. Like it's just whichever ones came to mind. Definitely for me, Friday the 13th, from 2009. I think because it had the perfect amount of like campiness to it. I think what was really cool was they took parts of the first three movies, put it all into one, but gave it its own like side story at the same time. Like just going from the beginning when you had the sack on his head, you had the backstory of, you know, his mom talking and Mrs. Voorhees, and I don't know, man. Like there's something about that movie, like the tone of it, everything that checks the box for like a Friday the 13th movie, it had it, and I think they did it pretty well. Like, what did you think of that?
I remember when I first saw it in theaters, I didn't like it, you know, very much. I think it's because they veered off. You know, I don't know if it was because it looked like a CW movie, you know, with the casting. I like the guy who plays a dick, just because I felt a lot of the comedy was from him. I was like, wow, this guy really is.
Especially the sex scene is hilarious.
I'm like, he really is a jerk off. But and also Jason didn't feel like Jason. He's growing weed and he's holding people captive. All these things didn't feel like Jason to me. But then, you looking at it under a different lens, I can see how, people appreciate it. And if you just look at it as a slasher, then it's a different story. But if you're coming in with expectation that you're going to see a Friday the 13th movie, that's what I did. It kind of threw me for a loop. But I'm glad that, it came out. I'm glad like a guy like Jared Padalecki was in it, because it kind of, even if you don't like or enjoy initially the movies when they come out, as far as horror, and more so for original content, you want them to do well, and you want, guys with credibility to be attached so they can keep making them. You're not going to hit out of the park every time, but want to see something, of that ilk, whether it's original horror movies out in the mainstream.
And I think it was cool at the end. They did the classic, like, Jason jump scene at the end, they had
to
the jump scare. So I think what I look for when I watch remakes a lot is I want them to put an original spin on it, but I want them to pay homage as well, because if not, it's kind of like slapping them in the face if you don't.
And this is about rewatchability. So a lot of times, we were watching movies you don't necessarily think are like perfect 10s.
Yeah.
And what this one had, you're right, the kills were awesome in this. So it's like, you may not watch the whole movie, but you're coming across it, you're channel surfing or something, you're going to watch it.
Right. You're like, oh, this is a good scene coming up.
Yeah.
So what other one do you have on your list?
One that came to my mind real quick, because it's about rewatchability, oddly enough, was the Black Christmas remake.
Hopefully the right one, right? The 2006 one?
The one that had Katie Cassidy in it, right?
Yes. And the one girl from Mean Girls on there as well.
They come out the hospital scene at the end. When Billy comes to the hospital. Yeah. That one was fun, because I guess, I throw another one in there too. Like, this is when, House of Wax was coming out too. It's another good one.
Oh yeah. Even though it still had the CW kind of actors, but it's a fun movie to rewatch.
It still works, because it's different, but it's also, I remember House of Wax, the big deal was Paris Hilton's in the movie, and everyone was like, oh, you're going to love the deaths, all this stuff. It was the hype behind it.
I remember that.
And then it had, Eliza Cuthbert, who was on 24, so you're like, it's got Jack Bauer's daughter in it, it's going to be awesome. And the special effects were cool too. So I'm kind of cheating going 2 for 1 here, but much in the same way that like House of Wax was fun to watch, Black Christmas was too. Is it better than the original? No, I'm not going to say that, but it was a fun watch. I like what they did with it. They kind of kept and honored a little bit of the original, but at the end, it just went full blown. We're coming at you through the hospital. Yeah, we're on the roof, coming through the roof, the ceiling of the hospital. So it was a fun. They turned it into a fun slasher.
Yeah,
and that made it. I guess that's where the rewatchability comes in.
Yeah, that's what I think is, especially when it comes to slasher movies. If it's not fun to watch, like if it's nothing exciting is going on, why am I going to rewatch this? Because most slashers don't have this really important drawn out story. It's not, some do, and some it works. But when you do remakes like this, I think Black Christmas did it. They did it pretty well. At least the 2006 version. 2019 version. That one wasn't even a remake really. It was just, hey, let's steal the name. That one was just. I think most people, including myself, just can't stand that movie.
I haven't seen it, so I'm glad, there's a framework to work around. If I do see it, I'm just going to see it as a standalone.
Yeah.
And not come with it as a prism of the Black Christmas, right? Like that.
Yeah. Because if you're going into it looking like, oh, this is going to be like the original or even the other remake, It's not.
And I like, that's what you shouldn't, you know, that's the good thing. You don't want it to, but you want it to be its own thing. You know what I mean? So that's why it's like,
that would be fair if the story they had, the plot, and like everything was good, but it was just so awful.
well, I'm saying that's what the Dawn of the Dead, House of Wax, Black Christmas remakes kind of did.
Yeah.
You know, you still had what made the original good. There was still like, you know, instead of that being the pound cake, that was the icing and the sprinkle of the movie. You know, it was still there, but it was its own movie, and they did something else with it.
Yeah. No,
that made any sense at all.
No, I definitely understand that. And I think this one is an obvious one. We'll go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003.
Oh, yeah.
I won't say it's better than the original, because to me, the original, like, that was probably one of the first horror movies that honestly scared the shit out of me. Like that one, Halloween, like those movies, like they terrify me. Like this one, like it didn't scare me because by the time it came out, I was old enough to like not really be scared by horror movies like that, but it was so good that it's definitely a movie I rewatch all the time. One thing that it did better with is I actually like Erin as the final girl. I like her better than Sally. Like Sally, I think is like in my opinion, an overrated final girl. I don't know. When you compare it to like, you know, other final girls, you know, Laurie Strode in the original Halloween, first two, but like Sidney Prescott, Ripley, like she's like, when you compare her to those, like she just, I don't know. It was kind of like she was final by like default. Like there wasn't much. It was like she just escaped at the end. It wasn't much of like a badass final girl. Like that's the kind I like. And I felt like Jessica Biel did such a great job with her character. I think better than most people thought she was going to do, honestly. And the cast in general, I think for a 2003 horror movie or 2000s horror movie in general, they all did a pretty decent job. What were your thoughts on the remake?
Yeah, I mean that's one that I think a lot of people, you're not going to hear too many complaints about, and they're going to share the same opinion. They're going to think that the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was better, and you're talking about a one-time watch, you know, of someone who's never seen it.
Yeah.
And I think it matters when you see these movies too. You know, I introduced someone to the original Halloween like years ago, and they were saying how like cliche it was. I'm like, well, yeah, if you see all this other stuff first, it's going to inform.
When you watch older movies, you have to put yourself in that time period, I feel like.
Right. And I think, you know, a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, they don't make movies like that anymore. You know, those kind of dark, almost documentary-esque, you know, exploitation movies of the 70s. You know, fortunately or unfortunately for your viewing pleasure, they don't make those anymore, so that when you go back and see them, you're not kind of like, there's no recall to modern movies that you're like, oh, I've seen this before, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's less of that. Not so much the case in Halloween because it kind of set the trend, but, you know, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, the original, obviously slow burn, definitely, you know, would recommend that over the remake, but the remake was more fun. Mainly the fun and the humor factor comes from Arlie Ermy. I mean, he's like just quotable, so much fun. You love him when he's on screen. You just love him when he's on screen, and he's creepy as hell. You know what he did to the actor Tucker in the car, where he hasn't put the gun in his mouth. You know, just
oh god, yeah, that like.
He's scarier than Leatherface, this guy.
Right. The suspense in that, in general, I'm like, it's ridiculous. And
yeah,
I think it was a good balance. And, you know, they did pay homage to, you know, the original so much, but they, like you said, but it was its own thing. Like,
yeah, when you watch it now, it's got the 2000s, you know, feel, or if someone's a hater, stank on it. It's got the soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
The greeny kind of filter on it. You know, you're like, yeah, this is definitely 2000. You can already tell. And an interesting thing that I was, you know, hearing on Dead Meat's podcast when they're talking about this. The casting of Jessica Biel, I liked her, but it was so funny. Once I heard this, I couldn't unsee it. It was like they had a problem with it only because she didn't look 70s. She didn't look like someone from the 70s. She looks like a millennial. Then I was like, I can see that. I can see that issue. And maybe because, that should have, you wouldn't have had that problem if it was someone who's lesser known. I think everyone knew her from Seventh Heaven and all that stuff and, all these other movies. But I didn't have a problem with that at the time. I just thought it was a funny little tidbit. But, that movie was the rewatchability. I remember in college, I rewatched the crap out of that movie. I loved it.
Yeah. So, what other ones do you have that you consider rewatchable?
One that came to my mind, and it just slipped. So I'm gonna go. I had it. I'm gonna go with the Bloody Valentine.
Yep.
Remake. I thought that was a good one.
Actually, Valentine's Day had passed a few months ago, so I watched it again on that. But yeah, that I definitely agree. That's a good rewatchable one.
Yeah, it's a good one because it's also unique because there's not a lot of slashers that deal with, just the minors. I like the setting too. I think they shot in Nova Scotia. This had the guy from Supernatural. His name's Jensen Ackles.
Yeah,
the remake. I believe Jamie King too. Yeah, they cast a lot of this. I think she was in like several of these remakes, but
Jamie King, she was in.
She was in a lot of horror movies in 2000.
Yeah,
but now this one was good because, and again, the rewatchability factor. The kills were awesome. The story's good. It's a slasher, but it's a slasher with, a lot more to it than just
psychological.
Yeah. And I forget what the killer's name too. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember when it came out, I watched it a lot, and as well as the original one, 1981, I believe.
Yeah. So
they're both good. The remake is rewatchable, pretty much for the same reasons as the original. To throw another one out there too, the Halloween. I don't want to talk about it too much. The Rob Zombie one. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I rewatched it a lot because that was the first remake of like a big franchise like that. I was like, they're gonna remake Halloween. How the heck are they gonna do that? And then I remember reading a lot of the reviews, and the main draw for me to rewatch it a lot was not so much the first half of the movie, but the second. See how he kind of did the same, Rob Zombie's take on the same night and the different stuff he did, including the parents of, Laurie Strode, Myers being like a freaking, instead of just being an everyday kind of guy blending in, he was like a beast, like 6'7". And I felt bad for what he did to Danny Trejo, man. I didn't like that.
I know. I was like, come on now. Like, he was on your side.
Yeah, what the hell? The only guy who gave a damn about you, you're going to kill him like that, you piece of shit?
Yeah, that part bothered me. But as far as both those movies, I think Halloween, the Rob Zombie remake, was definitely a step up from Resurrection, which was the one before it. So I think that was...
Oh, there's no question about that.
Right, that was a step in the right direction for that franchise, only to go downhill with the second one.
And the second one, I'll say this, like if you look at it under the prism of not being a Halloween movie, which is hard because it's called Halloween. Right. But in my eyes, I was looking at it, I was like the therapy scenes with Scout Taylor Compton, I was just like, man, like, I think that the 2018 kind of mined that aspect from it. Like no one ever talks about what the heck happened, all this traumatic shit that happened to Laurie Strode, how it affects her.
Right.
I like that they explored that in the sequel to that. And if you kind of look at it again, I guess it's like with the remake of Friday the 13th, you know, you just kind of look at it as its own standalone. You know, maybe you change your opinion on it, but, you know, a lot of people, A, it's their right not to do that. And B, it's hard to do that when the title is called.
Right.
Me too.
I think it was cool with My Bloody Valentine, which I'm surprised they were able to pull this off. It's rewatchable for a movie that was filmed for 3D. Like, that's one. So the fact that they were able to make it so it's still a good movie, because 3D, especially, like, it seemed like so played out, and a lot of times 3D movies don't always hold up well. But I love the twist at the end, because watching the original and then you watch the remake, you're like, oh shit, they flipped it. Like,
I like when they do that too. Yeah.
It just like it almost makes me think like had they not continued with the Scream sequels, say in like 2011, if that were to be a remake of the original instead, what would they have done with the killers? You know what I mean? Like, because they would have to, for something like Scream, like you'd have to switch it up completely, because there's no way, like, there's no murder mystery aspect of it. There's no like who done it. If you do,
you know, the best thing that they need to do with Scream, if they want to close out the franchise, is do what they did to, like, with New Nightmare, but with Scream. That way, everyone comes back. Everyone plays themselves, and there's so much you can do with it. You can do like you can almost have like Lillard and Kennedy be the killers because they killed them off, and maybe they're destitute now, or create something up, you know. But I always thought they should do like to Scream what they did with New Nightmare.
Oh yeah, and speaking of Nightmare, like, and I was bored the other night, and I happened to just rewatch the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. And even though like Freddy Krueger himself in that movie is like, it's hard to look at him because he's not Robert Englund. Really, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to it that I really enjoyed. I mean, I thought the cast was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The direct homages to the original were awesome. Definitely like not anywhere close to the original as far as quality, but that's a semi-rewatchable remake, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no critic, but my biggest gripe about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake was that they killed off what I thought was the most likable character in Katie Cassidy's character.
Yep.
Either too quick, I thought she should have been the final girl, but yeah, other than that, you know, they tried something different. And yeah, I mean, obviously, look, you're not gonna have Robert Englund. That's fine. If it's a new take, that's fine too. Like, they didn't try to do Robert Englund, so that's okay. But you know, a lot of people didn't like it. So
well, I feel like his comedic lines didn't come into like half the movie, like till like the second half of the movie.
It was a choice not to have as much humor. They wanted to make it dark. The 2000s was all about making everything dark. Everything was darker.
Another one that I thought of was It. Some of these ones I pick are controversial, but like I think It, and from 2017, I think is head and shoulders above the 90s miniseries, because if you go back and watch the miniseries,
I'm gonna fight you on this one. I disagree.
So to me, the miniseries very, very slow. Very, in my opinion, it can be really boring. But I mean, Tim Curry, like, he's the main thing that makes that whole miniseries. Like, you can't really top how he looks and the terror that Tim Curry brings to that role. I think if you're comparing the series to the 2017 movie, I think the movie did a great job. It, you know, paid its homages to the original. I don't know, there were certain things about it, like, to me, I think the remake's a lot more rewatchable than, for the excitement factor and among other things, than the miniseries. But I want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely disagree with that. I thought, and I remember watching the original. That's when, in the 90s, they had all the miniseries of Stephen King's.
Yep.
You know,
dogs, right?
Look, what's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? You know, there's Cujo over there. They had you know, Stephen King's It miniseries. They had the Stand, which was awesome. I want to watch the remake.
What was that? Rose Red, I think, like, or something like that.
Maybe, but I know the
was...
3 miniseries that they had on TV was The Stand, Langoliers, and It.
Yeah.
But this one was like, when you watch the remake, I think it's because of maybe the over reliance of the CGI.
I can understand that.
It just, for some reason, it takes me out. Like, I'd rather see,
Practical.
even though Howard the Duck versus a CGI Howard, like even if you calling him Goofy, I know he's there. The lighting's the same. We're watching the same thing the actors are looking at. It's almost like you're watching a video game cutscene or something when you're seeing too much CGI. You see him as a spider, like that. But I didn't think it was as scary. Was it fun to watch? Yeah. And for the sake of the video, is it rewatchable? Sure. I mean, a lot of people, it's fun to see. But I think the original was better, at least for the first half, for the kids.
Yeah.
I forgot it had Seth Green. It had the good actor Jonathan Landis, I believe his name is, the guy from Neverending Story, who had the stutter. And yeah, I think it was just more scary because it played more on the psychological, and Tim Curry's awesome.
And that's I'm not a huge fan of the original. I think there's no doubting that, like, his Pennywise is so iconic. Like, you can't dislike anything that he did in that movie, like in that series. It was just amazing.
It seems more grounded, and I could be biased because, I guess growing up at the same time as the kids on the screen, I relate to them more than 2017. So that could be why. So it's like, I don't relate to the kids, now. Sound like a get off my lawn. Maybe that's why I'm trying to give it a chance. But, with all that said, watching it in the theaters, the remake, it was entertaining, but it's just a personal preference. I'd go with the original over that.
And going back to your point about like CGI, I think that was a common criticism, which got worse in the second one, in It Chapter 2. But no, I think I agree with that criticism, though. I think that's one thing that the original definitely had over it was more practical. It
just seemed more grounded, much as it's like the Pet Sematary and the Pet Sematary remake, just for the same reason. Although there was something to be had. I enjoyed the remake too, but the original hit hot, like, they seem more like a family there.
Yeah.
They look more like a family there. And then Gage, the kid's death was just like damn, it hit almost as hard as Macaulay Culkin and My Girl. I was like, damn, dude, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
fun to also the original. It's fun to go back just to see what these guys are wearing. The adults, it's so much fun. The dude with the ponytail.
Oh yeah,
like the slacks. I'm like, they got to bring the '90s fashion back.
Going back and watching a lot of it. I think that's one of my favorite things about watching older movies, like movies from like 70s, 80s, 90s, is just what they consider to be like cool for that time. And then you see movies that are made now and how they try to recreate it. And only some movies can really do that, which would be definitely another discussion topic later. That'd be cool one to talk about.
I definitely understand that. It's funny. I watch some of these movies too with my girlfriend Erin, and she'll point out time periods based off hairstyles.
Yep.
It's so fun. So different people catch different stuff. But yeah, I think it's just hard,
parts of it when they try to put it in a different a past decade is the music. Like that's one of my favorite parts, because they'll pick mostly one of the most popular songs, but it's one of the best ones sometimes, and I like it. Like Fear Street did that, and I liked how they did it.
Yeah, and then sometimes they do it. It's like, all right, we get it. It's
not everyone listen to. Not everyone cares about "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Well, I mean that's cool, but like they'll choose something that's been in every car commercial. That's in every like. It's like, all right, can we choose something that's a little bit more like if you were listening to the radio at the time, this would come on versus the pop hit that everyone,
Oh yeah.
It's almost as distracting as having like an A-list actor in every single role. You know what I mean? When you have these huge songs all the time,
it's
the same ones that come at
you. It comes off too Hollywood, and that makes it unenjoyable, in my opinion, if it's oversaturated like that. Yeah. Did you have any like last minute ones that that?
They're just kind of throwaways.
Maybe even some that aren't rewatchable that you wanted to note.
Well, two throwaways. I won't get too in depth with them, but one, I'm cheating on this because it was The Ring, and it's more of the hype behind it. Kind of the same way that Blair Witch Project did. People thought Blair Witch was real.
Oh yeah.
When it came, remember all that, and so it was scary because we thought it was real. I remember watching it for the first time. I was like, do you see the guy up against the corner? You think the witch is there, and then you just stop, and then your spine's frozen watching. I was like, holy crap, that was so scared. Cost them, pennies to make and all that stuff, and did pretty much excellent. It was the greatest marketing campaign probably in the history of cinema, or I don't know what. The Ring was kind of the same way. I remember everyone talking, the hype around it. They were like, man, this is the scariest movie. It's super scary. Everyone was always freaking out talking about it. Then when I finally went to see it, it was scary to me because I think that was the first movie I saw where like it introduced you do this, then you're gonna die no matter what in this amount of time.
Yeah.
Type thing. I forget whatever you want to call that device.
Like an instant, like
the inevitability to it.
Yeah, an impending doom kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was scary, especially the way they did.
Where it's like, crap, like this is definitely going to happen now. Like,
yeah, I guess Final Destination more like a spectacle, more like fun.
Yeah.
I
guess.
Yeah, like you're kind of wondering how the hell is this going to happen? I know he's going to bite it, but how? This was kind of like just scary. The images and. I didn't know it was a remake at the time, so
yeah,
that's why I'm introducing it on this. That's why it's cheap, and yeah, that and then The Blob, the same reason. I enjoyed The Blob because it was a '80s movie that I saw outside of my youth, so I was like, I felt like I was going back to being because when you're watching all these movies back then, you're like, as like, in my opinion. There was a lot more fun to be had with movies back then versus now. I think now, if you're a Marvel fan, you're a superhero fan, you're in heaven. If you're not, you got to go through streaming and all that stuff to find your stuff. But back then, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'm gonna bring it back. I like to watch movies from the '80s that I haven't seen because it's almost like you're going back,
like a time.
It's like you're buying time again or something. You're like, man, I haven't seen this. So it's like you're going back, you're buying time, watching movies, for the first time that, from a time period that you enjoyed. And The Blob, was a remake. And I got the same fun from it as I did from, like watching like a Killer Clowns movie. It's a sci-fi B movie with badass special effects, fun kills, and a cool premise. And it's got the guy from Halloween 4 that gets worked by Myers on the staircase with the shotgun. I forget what the actor's name is, but he's in it. I believe the girl from Saw's in it, who also was in Becker, that Ted Danson show back in the day. I forget her name. She's a great actress. It's just a fun movie. Have I seen it in a long time? No, but I remember I saw it like I rewatched it when I was reintroduced to it, several times. And I like to show it to people. I was back in college when I was like, my roommate was burning DVDs, so I was like trying to get my own Blockbuster on my binder. So I was getting all these movies I can, just so I can have my own Blockbuster of like horror movies and stuff like that. But I remember I had a lot of fun with the Block.
Yeah, I mean, like some, and I could definitely.
I talked way more about it than I intended to. I apologize.
No, you're good. That's all we have. That's why we have post, right? If I were to like throw some out there, it would be The Crazies from 2010, and then also Mother's Day from the same year.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, Mother's Day. And I remember I didn't watch it until after, like, I didn't watch it around that time. I actually had watched the remake, like,
it was fun.
Years. And it was hard to see the oldest brother as a bad guy because I like him on Chicago PD. So it was like, I don't know. So he did a great job because he's a great dude in Chicago PD, and then you have him as this like I can't stand him, antagonist. But yeah, the acting in Mother's Day was great. The Crazies was excellent as well, in my opinion. Both rewatchable remakes.
I gotta watch The Crazies. I haven't seen it, so that's a good.
Well, especially with the whole like pandemic thing, it's kind of an appropriate movie to watch.
It slipped under the radar for me, so I'm glad you brought it up.
I thought there was another one that was pretty rewatchable, but yeah, I mean, I think we have a great list. There's a new one that came out, new remake that came out. I'm kind of on the fence about whether it's rewatchable or not. I think it's a pretty good movie. I think people kind of like gave it too much praise. Is the new Slumber Party Massacre?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it literally just came out. Either the end of last.
It's on Shudder.
I don't know. I have it right here. Hold on.
Another one I forgot to bring up was Cape Fear.
See, it just came out in it says from Scream Factory. It's a sci-fi original. Yeah, it came out in 2021. And the reason I gave it a chance, I was like, all right, I love the original. I gave it a chance because it was so heavily praised by critics on like across the board. And I was like, all right. And I watched it and it was fun. Some of the social commentary was a little annoying at times, but it's a fun watch. I don't know if it's like rewatchable for me per se, like a lot, but if I go over to someone's house and they're like, hey, I want to put this movie in, like maybe they've never seen it before and I have, and I'll be like, all right, I'll watch it. That's fine. Like I'll sit through it. But so that's kind of on the fence with that one, probably leaning more towards not as rewatchable.
Yeah, I gotta check that out too. You're bringing up good points. But yeah, Cape Fear, I didn't know it was a remake. It makes me want to go watch.
I think most of these movies, because of our age range, our age group, like, and like especially when things came out in like the 2000s and stuff, we thought a lot of these were original movies.
But yeah, they were remaking a bunch.
Oh yeah, that was the time period that they wanted to rehash everything.
Yeah, but I didn't know this. I guess because it was Scorsese, De Niro. I think this came out in 1990, 1991. And Nick Nolte had all these. I didn't know it was a remix, so I'm gonna go back and try to see if I can watch the original. And rewatchability is different from
overall
good
quality. Yes.
Yeah. Rocky 1 is the best movie in that series by far. I've seen part 3 like way more times than part 1. Part 4, same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Are they better? No, but they're a lot more rewatchable.
I can say that about a lot of popular.
Yeah.
Any genre.
If you're gonna choose a movie to bring from Blockbuster, and you're gonna want to bring something that's you could put on. It's not gonna require too much brain power, but it's not a complete bore.
Yeah.
That has humor. It's entertaining. And if, we're talking about horror movies, so something has to be going. A slow burn probably isn't gonna be, topping any of our list. I don't even think we named one.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right.
That can't be a slow burn.
And I think honestly, and we'll talk about this in another discussion, but that's kind of what I think one of the things that brings that people don't like elevated horror, because a lot of it doesn't have rewatchability. It could be a great movie, but a lot of them you're just like, okay, I've seen it. It's not something that I can rewatch all the time because a lot of them are slow burners.
And I don't think it's necessarily we know what the reveal is because the movie behind you, Scream.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen all those movies? We already know the killer. Now it's, can we catch the clues?
Oh yeah.
That they showed us. That's kind of what makes it rewatchable. So yeah, that's a good topic of what makes the movie rewatchable. For me, it's more about humor, entertainment factor, which we're talking about a movie, like duh, of course. And just the fun. And not, does it require your attention at every given second because you might miss something?
Yeah.
If I miss something, if I have to,
it doesn't affect the whole movie for you. You're not confused. Yeah.
I got to make a quick phone call or something. You can obviously hit pause, so it doesn't apply nowadays. But
right.
You come back, you kind of get the gist. That doesn't require too much. But
yeah, I mean, I think my definition of it would be kind of similar. I think a rewatchable movie in general is definitely one that can keep your attention enough. You obviously have fun watching it. As far
one that you enjoy the most. That's
pretty much one you enjoy the most. That I think that's something that gets lost in translation when people talk about, what are your thoughts on this movie? You see on like Facebook group pages and forums, and someone will say like a movie that's not that popular, and it's like, that movie sucks. But it doesn't to them. Like, that's something that they have fun watching. So that's a rewatchable movie for them. It might not be a rewatchable movie to us. It might not be a great movie overall, but it's something that it's fun to watch. For horror movies, if you like the kills in there, you like certain scenes, some memorable lines in there, like as Scream fanatics like you and I, that's one of the things we live for when we watch the Scream movies, is like just the memorable quote after quote after quote. And
that's what makes, Robert Englund so good with the Freddy Krueger movies,
even the ones that are not as great, you're like, but it's Robert Englund as Freddy. And so
that's why we like Arnold too, the catchphrases, the one-liners, Stallone and his action movies as well. That's fun. To some people it isn't, but as filmmakers should always like to hear people's opinions, even if it's shit. If they're shitting on a movie, okay, you thought that movie was shit, why? I want to know why. I'm curious. Everyone's a potential customer, potential fan, and it's just, you got to know what people are thinking out there. And obviously, if you're in the same horror groups as we are, they let you know loud and clear.
That's the toxic fandom there.
I'm here for it though, man. I'm here for the Jerry Springer groups, man. Let's hear it.
Oh yeah, just some outlandish opinions and stuff like that. Where can people find you on social media so they can follow the things you do and your projects?
Well, you can. I'm pulling up my IG. It's TooLegit85 on Instagram. I also have a podcast that we interview independent creatives, whether you're a musician, a filmmaker, actor, writer, whatever. It's Indie Rundown. It's at the Indie Rundown on Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel as well, but it's a podcast. So you get us on Spotify, iTunes, etc. I'll send you the link. And that's about it, man.
think we're going to wrap it up, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's fun.
All righty. Take care.
If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell notification so you know every time we post a video. While you're at it, feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'll see you guys on the next one.